Thank you. It's time for intermediate Bible study. We'll take this opportunity to work for everyone here. We certainly do appreciate your presence. We got a good number of presents. You have to be busy with us. I want you to know how much we appreciate you being here tonight today. Each and every opportunity to have to be with us. As always, business considered to be honored gift. If you would, everyone secure a songbook and turn the page 453. That'll be the first song in just a minute on the director for Brother Ronnie. We certainly want to continue to remember all those that we mentioned Sunday that's on the sick list. So keep them in our prayers here as well as at home. I'll give a quick update on some Burlingville and Kinky, their brother, might be a little better. Doing some better, so that's good. Roger Wigginton, Roger is still in the hospital over in Memphis at the bed. His prognosis is still about the same. Not much change going on there. Of course, Nina Holland, Nina is had all her testing done now and so forth, and she's set to have her transplant on one comes available. She'll be having a kidney and liver transplant both. So keep that in mind. Also, continue to remember Sister Shelley Hancock. Shelley was here Sunday, but she's not able to be here tonight. Also, Sister Katie Dodd, keep her in prayer as well. That's all the updates I have, unless someone knows what I need to add to the sick list. There's a gospel meeting at Pleasant Grove Church of Christ in Iuka. It'll be June the 27th through June the 30th. Brother Ty Rhymes. Ty Rhymes, I think I'm pronouncing that right. R-H-Y-M-E-S. Rhymes, is that correct? Ty Rhymes, they're doing the preaching. So I'll post this, and everyone keep that in mind. It'll be the 27th through the 30th. Also, gospel singing, June the 25th. See, that's tomorrow night. It's at Daniel Church of Christ down in Victorville. Everybody knows where that's at. Right off Highway 45. Today. I'm going to have to deal with it. Anyway, Friday night, June the 25th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. at Nashville. Keep that in mind. Also, Vacation Bible School, June the 27th through the 30th. This will be at West Corrin Church of Christ. See, their theme is going to be the star of Jesus, the storm that obeyed Jesus, the voice from the clouds, and the ascension of Jesus. So it'll be Sunday through Wednesday. Anyway, I'll post this. That's at West Corrin. And I have a card here I'd like to read. It says, "For your one-of-a-kind thoughtfulness, we are deeply thankful for the kindness and compassion you extended to our family during the loss of our father, Pete Strickland. Your donation to Pine Bell will be put to good use. Thank you, Strickland family." And I'll post this as well. Also, birthdays and anniversaries. Of course, John and Junior had theirs just a couple of days ago. But we still got one in front of us. She had the opportunity Monday night to get happy birthday sang to her. She just so wouldn't let them do it. So sorry I wasn't there because I can assure you they would have done it. But anyway, Mary, happy birthday. Dan Ross has still got one coming up. His is the 29th, so we can drag y'all a couple more days. Happy birthday, and certainly hope you have many, many more. And we also want to thank everyone who's taken part and get to do the decoration. As you can see, there's been an awful lot of work already done. We've got quite a few more things we're planning to do, and so forth. Also, the snacks will be served. If it's not raining, we're going to serve them here at the end of in the shed, here at the end of the building. Anyway, they will be served there. If it is raining, then we'll go somewhere else. If y'all definitely want it to rain, if somebody cut down a little hay, it will rain. Anyway, they will be served here at the end of the building in the shed. Keep that in mind. And also, our Vacation Bible School is Saturday, and everyone help spread the word. I know you already are. I hope you have a good turnout for that. We'll be able to do some good in that respect. Order of worship tonight, Brother Ronnie will be leading our singing. Eugene, you have the opening prayer. Michael, you have the closing prayer. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure everybody will be Tony and Steve Walker, who came first year. Her mother passed away. And was buried today.
Okay. Tony and Cindy Walker, most of you I'm sure remember them. Cindy's mom passed away this week. Buried, so remember that family. Yes, ma'am.
Everybody probably knows, but we need the ladies to bring wrapped hot dogs like we do into clothing, like in a cooler, and cookies.
Okay, ladies.
Everything else is already involved, drinks, condiments, and chips. So we just hot dogs and
Okay, ladies.
And we'll do some tables, we'll do some tables and some coolers of ice.
Okay, we can go over to Chelsea building, sure. And some ice if you want to think of bring some ice. But hot dogs wrapped in the cellophane and cookies. Ladies, if you would please remember and do that. Again, let's remember the Safety family and the loss of their grandson down here all of you know them, all of those who boys peanut saving, and anything else. Bryce Rory, grandson's name was Bryce Rory. So anyway, continue to remember this family in your prayers as well. Is there anything else now that I've overlooked? And I have the invitation. All right.
453, all three verses. I was thinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore, very deeply sank within, thinking to rise no more. But the master of the sea heard my despairing cry. From the waters lifted me, now saved my mind. Love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. All my heart to Him I give, ever to Him I cling. In His blessed presence live, ever His praises sing. Love so mighty and so true, merits my soul's best song. Faithful, loving servitude to Him belong. Love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. Souls in danger look above, Jesus completely saves. He will lift you by His love out of His angry way. He's the master of the sea, fills His will obey. He, your Savior, wants to keep you safe today. Love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. I know Berlin. You should I realize that Christ got something that I they changed now. That's a short version. This is about one bar there. Yeah, the short version of that song. Now it's the name
All right. I hope that everybody is doing well. This evening, it looks like everyone has picked up their materials. Everything came in. It was in yesterday. I came in and I sorted through everything. Tried to have everything separated. And we got plenty of posters. We got a lot of other things that if you feel like you want to take a poster and you feel like there's a certain spot that would be well decorated with that poster, then by all means grab it, go for it. Really, a lot of credit needs to go to these kids because they are really the ones that are putting all this together. They took this. I think it was maybe early May, middle of May when we decided that we were actually going to have BBS this year. And so we met a couple of weeks ago to make sure that we had these things ironed out, and I've had conversations with some of the kids, and a lot of the ideas that all this is their idea. And we're kind of working with it, just getting up here and just putting some time in, trying to make an art, without breaking the building, So, but yeah, hats off really to these kids. They're really taking charge, and we got Taylor and Clayton and Abby and Gracie, and they've been here with me over the past couple of days. I know that Allie Rose has been here with Karen, and they've been doing some work too. So it's really just a lot of effort that these kids are putting in. I had an idea of things that I thought might work, and then they'll come up and they'll say, "What if we try it this way?" And then, that's a good idea. Let's give it a shot. And usually theirs is a better idea. And so I just let it roll,
Well, we could change our idea. So.
What's that?
We're stubborn. Yeah, we're stubborn. But we did put it on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, that's okay. Sometimes it pays to be stubborn. And here's we're working on an end result here. We got a couple other things that we're going to try to pull off in the next day or two, just to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. But there's a couple other ideas that we're going to play with over the next couple of days. We're excited about Saturday. We know that it's going to be busy, and it's one of those things where we go into it, we work up until it's time, right? And then you're in the middle of it, and it's exciting, and then it's over with, and you need a nap, and you're exhausted. But it's one of those things. It's a good kind of tired, because you know that you've planted a seed, and there are an enormous amount of stories of people who were first introduced to the Lord's church through any kind of a Bible study or through a vacation Bible school. One of the ministers at Gloucester Street, he's this guy, Chad Ramsey. Some of you may have heard of him before. He's been at Gloucester Street for several years now. But one of his favorite things of the year is vacation Bible school, because he said that his granddad was first introduced to the church at a vacation Bible school, and he grew up and became a gospel preacher, and then his son would become a gospel preacher, and then Chad, and you're talking a series of anywhere between 5 and 6, but possibly even 10 gospel preachers came from that one person's invitation to go to a vacation Bible school. So it's extremely important. And too, when you're talking about those invitations, you're not talking about just the gospel preachers. You're also talking about those souls that have been saved because of that single vacation Bible school, that one invitation. So make sure that you're taking time to send an invitation. Or, you know, if you see somebody who you feel like could benefit from a vacation Bible school, you know, it's just a couple hours on Saturday. It's not a big deal. We're going to come, we're going to study the Bible, we're going to have some fun along the way, and there we go. And really, that's kind of one of the things that really plays into the lesson that we have in front of us for our Bible class tonight. You know, we're talking about training up preachers, and we've well established what a preacher is or who a preacher is, and the fact is that any of us can be preachers, and if not necessarily in the standing up here and explaining or talking about Scripture, there are other ways that we can preach to those who we come in contact with, and that's through our behavior at school. That's through our behavior in public. I read something the other day. It said that there's no feeling of embarrassment like somebody who, like going to dinner with someone who mistreats the waitstaff. Think about that for a minute. Think about, let's say that you've gone out to dinner with a group of friends, and somebody at that table has just absolutely, just incredibly rude to the waitstaff. What's their mindset there? What if that person is an elder of the church? What if that person's a preacher in the church, and they're just really rude to the waitstaff? I mean, it's kind of this same idea. You know, we're all preachers in a certain regard. But here we're obviously talking about the idea of being exposed to the gospel and that exposure turning one into a gospel preacher. We are on page 54 in the Green Book, the mission of the local church. The mission of the local church. If we were to just put a label on that mission, what is it? What's our job as Fraley's Chapel? What's our job? To spread the gospel. Okay? To spread the gospel to whom? The local community. Right? First. Okay? We have to address the local community first. Okay, so would we see a benefit from doing work in Tupelo? We might see some benefit, but is it good to do work in Tupelo and neglect the people that are next door? It's really not. We need to make sure that that's what our focus is as a congregation. So here, the mission of the local church is to make sure that we are feeding the local people. Okay? And the first way that you have to do that is you have to have an able preacher. Right? That's one of the things that you have to have. Okay? And so one of the things that you're seeing here, we're talking about first of all, this idea that there is a crisis. There's a crisis. What's the crisis? There's a shortage. There's a shortage of preachers. Okay? And where does that shortage stem from? It stems from the fact that there's not necessarily a shortage of preachers, but there's a shortage of people in training programs. Right? Are there enough training programs? Probably. Are there enough people in those training programs? That's where the problem is, right? Okay, so that's what we're seeing here. And we talked last week about the growth of the gospel in India, in places like India. And again, we talked a good bit about the reason that they saw such great exponential growth was because why? do you think that they saw a greater growth than we might see here?
See the gospel.
Mhm.
That's their hope.
Right.
So blessed. Get God out.
Yeah.
Feel like
Yeah. Well, Ronnie said, that we won't accept it. Okay, we won't. As a society, we won't accept it. And as a society, that's what they have. The gospel presents to them hope. Okay, remember one of the things that we said last week, what is India's, what's their biggest religion? Hindu, right? Okay, so what's ultimately, what do they do? What ends up happening when a person dies? They're resurrected into a cow. I know, right? What kind of hope is that? I guess it depends on where you're resurrected, right? If you're resurrected in Texas, you might be in trouble as a cow. Okay? Mississippi, huh? For the rest of us, yeah. For the rest of us, yes. For the resurrected cow, no, not so much. But anyway, the point though is that the gospel presents to them hope, right? To us, the problem that we see is it's almost an oversaturation, and it goes into that idea of not just preaching the gospel, but preaching the gospel accurately, right? Because what do we have as a society even today? We've got too many religions, right? Even too many Christian religions. When in all actuality, Christ died for what? For the church. He purchased the church with his blood. Right? How many churches? Just one. But there's a plethora of Christian religions out there, which is kind of scary. Okay, but again, we're talking about the whole idea. We're talking about a shortage of people going into ministry. We're on number 3 here on page 54, so it says, again, add to the problem the fact that a number of men who are presently preaching the gospel on a full-time basis are ceasing to do so. Okay, do you see that happening today? You really do. You really start. You stop seeing that, and why? Why are people shying away from full-time ministry? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
Discouraging. We feel like my heart. Okay. So this will not see
Yeah.
Really easy. Especially if you go to
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to get discouraged with hope. There's a young person, really, and they see what they can. Let's say that they would sit, but right now, this country, one thing, he needs everything.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's a big thing. One is that there is a certain level of discouragement, right? And I would say that it is harder today to grow up as a faithful Christian than it's probably ever been. And I say that seeing the culture that these young people have to deal with. And I'm not saying that it's not been hard before, but these kids, they have when I was growing up, I didn't have to deal with social media. Okay, I didn't have to worry about kids at other schools and what they thought. Didn't matter to me. Okay, when I was in high school, I did three things on a daily basis. I got up in the morning, I went to school. After school, I had football practice. After football practice, I went to work. And then I went home, I went to bed, I did it all over again. Okay? That's kind of, that was the experience that I had. I talked to some kids at school, I talked to some kids at work, that was about it. But here, now what you got with society now, it's really hand in hand with what you said a minute ago, with this idea that our society, it says that it condemns everything except for sin, right? And that's a real great way to put it. This society that we have right now is it's scary when you really get into the brass tacks of it. And there are things that I witness on a daily basis that I'm not going to get into right now. This culture that's coming up right now, in 20 years, do what? Part of it, yes. I think a big part of it, yes. I think a big part of it too is you have social media, and I think a big part of it is that there is a lack of accountability. So I think that you might have some that there is this idea that okay, you see a certain Hollywood agenda, and it's being shoved down these kids' throats because they idolize this certain actor or singer or whatever the case might be. Or even today, it's probably, well, I think YouTube is probably on its way out as far as popularity goes. Now it's probably, TikTok is probably the most popular thing. So now it's certain celebrities on this app, and they have this certain idea of the way things should be, and the kids want to be cool, so they try to sound or act like this person, and then now somebody who goes to Alcorn County High School, Alcorn Central, they can bully somebody at Corinth High School at any point in the day. And there's no accountability there. So I think that there's a certain level that is being pushed on these kids, but at the same time, I think that there is a lack of accountability for some of the actions of these kids. And then when they get home, when they do get in trouble, who holds them accountable there? It's not their parents. Their parents will not hold them accountable. Little Johnny never does anything wrong. I know you've always heard that. Now you're talking about little Johnny and his global influence, and he never does anything wrong. So you're looking at a much larger issue. So there is a huge amount of discouragement there, especially for our younger people. I think too. I really go along. Finances is another thing. Most preachers, the vast majority of preachers, they do so as independent contractors. And that gets expensive, especially when you start adding in insurance. If this were my only job, I'd be afraid to look at what insurance would cost for my family. It would be ridiculously high. And that's one of the things that we talked about when I got started, was the fact that I would need to maintain that the job that I had, the secular job, because retirement and insurance, those two things are not inexpensive, and it's going to get worse, I'm afraid. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Look at person where they have to be for from it. So people are facing.
Mm-hmm.
That means that several calls. And you're making sure that she was on the wrong foot.
I read, I think it was yesterday, and I'm not surprised to see it. I think it's, I think they pushed the Olympics back because of COVID last year. So we're getting ready to have Summer Olympics coming up soon. And I think it's New Zealand. Did you see what has been accepted in the women's powerlifting for New Zealand? Take a wild guess. Absolutely. I mean, a 6'2" man is competing in women's powerlifting. And he's a big dude. But society, nothing wrong with that. That's okay. I don't know. I mean, but that's where this discouragement comes in, because our job, what is our job? The preacher's job is to do what? Get up and tell the truth. Okay? The world doesn't like the truth. Absolutely. You've got to have someone knows mentality. No one knew what the truth was. Did everybody like it? Obviously not. It did not end well for all but 8 people. You were exactly right. Varied are the reasons for this situation. However, such does not solve the problem, but rather complicates the situation. Right? Again, it's a complicated situation. Observing one more factor, then observing one more factor, the growth of the church must be considered in the total picture. Between 1950 and 1965, the Lord's Church grew from 1 million people to 2.35 million people, an increase of 135%. Okay, what I mean, the first thing that I think is important is you have to take that period of time into a historical context. Okay, there were a lot of things that were playing into this idea of during the 1950s, and especially early 1960s, the United States, we were involved in something called the Cold War. Okay? The United States was involved in the Cold War. Okay? And a big part of that was this idea of McCarthyism. Okay? Does anybody remember what McCarthyism is from American history class? Okay. McCarthyism was essentially, for all intents and purposes, it was a witch hunt. Okay? If you decided to part your hair on the wrong side of your head, okay, what were you? You're a communist. Didn't matter if you're a communist or not, but you were going to be accused of that thing. So what happened was you would see a lot of people who, if you didn't fit a very specific mold, and you'd see this a lot in your television shows from in the 1950s too, especially like your Leave It to Beavers and all of these cookie cutter shows. It was always mom, dad, brother, sister, cat, dog, white picket fence. Okay, you have all of those things that are almost present in those television shows. Okay, and a lot of them were just where everything gets solved in 25 minutes. Okay, and so in this period of time, in order to avoid being accused of becoming a communist, what did people do? They went to church. They would turn to church. Okay, do I think, looking at it from a historical perspective, being honest with myself, do I think that this 135% increase, do I think that all of those people were actually religious-minded Christians? Faithful-minded Christians? I don't. I think a lot of this growth was a result of trying to avoid certain stigmas. That said, do I think that there's a certain, that there is that there was a benefit to it. Probably. Because there's a planting of the seed there. Okay? When we talk about that VBS that Chad Ramsey's grandfather was invited to, it's very likely that it was in that time or even just a little bit before. So, you're talking about something that's extremely important.
Everything. Country was important then, too.
What's that?
Country was important then.
Yeah, absolutely. The country was more important.
I actually followed the war, too.
Yeah. What you would see.
Vietnam.
Well, that's why we have that label on that generation of people, right? That generation of people was called what? What's that? The baby boomers. Yeah. Well, it's called the greatest generation, right? You ever heard that before? It's called the greatest generation. That generation of people right around then, because that's when that's when men were men, okay? And that's when there was a global problem, and what did the United States do? They went and cleaned it up, okay? So it's often considered the greatest generation. If you were to look up that label, then that's the generation that you would see. And so, yeah, country was very important to people then.
Manufacturing was getting big.
I'm sorry?
A lot of jobs, manufacturing was huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, everybody was doing well.
Yeah.
Coming out of poverty.
Well, you got to consider too, in that period, the Great Depression was ending, and in the United States, we ended up having to, when you think about World War I and World War II, it's fought almost exclusively in Europe and Asia. Okay, the vast majority of that was in Europe. Okay, what were the farmers doing in Europe? They weren't fighting, or they weren't farming, they were fighting. So who has to supply the food? We'll do it. Okay, we're going to do it for free? No, we're going to sell it. So that's where a lot of our income would come in. And then at the same time, they're missing. Europe ended up having about 50 million people killed during World War II. So when you think about World War II, and the result of that, you think about 50 million people being removed from that economy. Okay, their economy is going to tank. Whose economy is doing okay? We're doing okay. So we'll loan them money. Are we going to do that for free? No. Okay. So we're doing okay over here. And at that point, there is a great amount of pride in being the United States, because at that point we are the only superpower at that point. And so yeah, there is a great deal of pride there. And then if you were to compare that to today, you've got certain ideologies that are being taught in high schools and secondary schools that the United States is inherently evil. It's not encouraging, to say the least. During the same period, the second fastest growing religious body was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but they only gained 61%. So the church was the largest growing religious body at that point in time. Now, with this wonderful growth of the Lord's church, comes a corresponding need of more and more men to preach and teach, that the church might continue to grow, and that the members thereof might be properly taught and indoctrinated. Okay, we will conclude this section next week. Good last day.
Grace is coming up here. I heard something.
Again, it's good to see everyone here tonight. Certainly do appreciate your presence. So be sure not to forget about our Vacation Bible School this Saturday. Again, I wholeheartedly agree with John. Thank our young people for their efforts that they're putting out. They're doing a great job, and for all of those that working with them to help working with them, certainly do appreciate that. The theme of our PBS this time, of course, is the flood. And in fact, Bill and I had a real night, and he's got something that I'm looking forward to him presenting. Possibly when he does the devotion next night, goes along with exactly what I won't talk a little bit about tonight. But he gets into a lot more details. It's a whole lot more interesting. But anyway, we're talking about the flood. And of course, the story, all of us know the story of Noah. If you have your Bibles in Genesis chapter 6, starting with verse number 5, it says, Then the Lord saw that wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent and the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing, birds of the air, for I am sorry that I made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. All of us know the rest of the story. God told Noah to build an ark for something that he had never seen, a flood. Noah had never seen a flood, never seen it rain. Because at that time, we all know the earth was water from below. But he also told him to preach. Tell everyone what's going to happen. They have an opportunity to save themselves, basically, while you're building this ark. From the time that God told Noah to build the ark until the flood came was approximately 120 years. Now, we don't know that it took him 120 years to build the ark, so forth, but anyway, it was approximately 120 years that Noah preached. And as Berlin said Sunday, was talking about Great Sunday, he accomplished something. He really did. And until she mentioned that, I really personally never looked at it that way. I was looking at, he didn't save any of the people he was preaching to, but he saved his family. And how much more important, when we're able to save our family. But he saved his family. But nobody else listened to him. And we can just imagine that they made fun of him, this and that. But he didn't lose faith. He didn't stop. He kept going. And that's what we talked about a minute ago, the mentality of Noah. His willingness to keep going against all odds. Think about it. Am I willing to keep going for 120 years when everybody's making fun of me and ridiculing me because they think you're crazy? Flood, such things, flood. But what I want you to think about, God's going to destroy this earth again. He is going to destroy this earth again. How do I know that? Because he told me in his word that he's going to destroy it. Not with a flood this time. Not with a flood. He's going to burn it up. The old gospel preacher, black gospel preacher, Bill, what's his name? Definitely right quick. All of you know who I'm talking about. Who? Marshall Keeble. Farmer took him out one Sunday afternoon after church, wanted to show him his farm, show him what he had. He took Marshall out and he showed it all to him. He's proud of it. Rightfully so. When he got back, he asked Marshall, what do you think about it? Marcia looked at him and said, God's gonna burn it up. And how true. He's going to destroy this earth, everything that's in it, but he's telling you and I right now, you have an opportunity. Right now. We know how wicked the world got in Noah's time. And we're just talking tonight in our class. You know, the trend is that way again. But right now we have the opportunity. Because when he destroys this earth this time, we're going to stand before him in judgment. And we're going to answer for what we did while we were on this earth. If our name is not found written in the book of life, there's not one of you here that don't know what he's going to say. Depart from me. I never knew you. You know, when we think of that one statement, how sad. And all these people, you know, God tells us in his word, come that day, every knee will bow. Not every other knee, or not most knees. Every knee will bow. All these folks that have rejected him over and over and had the opportunity to accept him over and over, they're going to realize it's too late. Just like the folks during the flood of Noah's day. When God shut the door, and God shut the door, no one else was going in. You think then there was anybody standing on the outside that would like to have got in? No. I wish I had listened. I'm sure they did. If you're here tonight and you've got a need, or maybe you've left your first love, or maybe you've never confessed his sweet name, take that opportunity now. Correct. Once you tell them I'll run it down these.
940. 940. Hear the sweet voice of Jesus say, come unto me, I am the way. Hearken the loving call, obey. Come, for he loves you so. Only yourself, come, for he bled for you and now. He's the same loving Savior, yeah. Jesus the crucified. Cast in your heavy burden now. Come to the cross, the world may frown. Yet you shall wear a glorious crown when he makes up his own. Only yourself, come, for he bled for you and now. He's the same loving Savior, yeah. Jesus the crucified. Open for you the pearly gate, love for you. Now watch and wait. Terrible thought to cry too late. Jesus, I come to thee. Only yourself, come, for he bled for you and died. He's the same loving Savior, yeah. Jesus the crucified. I thank everyone for coming out tonight. If you're visiting with us, you're an honored guest. Ask you to come back. Does anybody have any other announcements?
Michael Kenny had closing prayer.
Michael Kennedy.
Heavenly Father, come before you with this out. Thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight, study the Holy Divine Word. Father, we pray for church here, pray that we grow in the spirit and truth. We pray for elders, for the body and field, that you guide them and give them the strength, courage, and wisdom to serve the church. Ask that you do it. Brother Ronnie, as he carries out the work, sign in. Father, we're thankful for Brother John, Brother Shield with us. Ask that you give him a long and fruitful life in our service. Thankful for Brother Randy as he leads us in our song of prayer. Father, we pray for the sick and afflicted the world over, especially those that's been mentioned here tonight. And we pray for the ones that have lost loved ones. Pray that you come on the place that you can. We pray for our country. Pray that you be with them also. Father, we pray that you watch over and care for us. Be here again at our next point in time. Pray